Welcome to ADHD-Friendly. I'm Patty. I am an ADHD coach and the creator of ADHD-Friendly.com and the membership community that is designed to tilt the playing field in favor of our brain wiring with ADHD. Let's jump in. Becca is here to help me record. It is episode 129. Almost at the 0 episode, which I call my special 10 episode. Every 10th episode, I focus in on a personal owner's manual topic. So that will be coming up next week. But for today, I will start as I always do with a celebration. And then I have an ADHD-friendly tool that I'm going to highlight. And then our topic for this week, SketchNotes. I'm just going to do a really high level overview, not going to go really deeply into it, but I do want to introduce the concept in case it's something that resonates for you to support you to remember what you are reading or trying to take notes on a little bit more effectively. And then I'm going to share my book of the week. All right, let's jump in. So celebration, as always, going to start with the subscribers. Welcome, welcome. All of the new subscribers. I can say all because it's more than 2.
Yay!
So I'm like, oh my gosh, so stinking happy to have you join us. And I still, every time I look at this, I'm like, who
are you? How are you?
I don't know. And I don't like, I'm so appreciative. So thank you. We are up to 736 this week.
Thanks,
Just
everybody.
chugging right into the mid 700s. I know, it's crazy. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking a moment to subscribe. And I hope that you're able to find something that resonates for you that helps you to manage ADHD with a little bit more ease. So my other celebration, I'm wearing it, Becca. If you are listening to this podcast, I invite you to check out the YouTube channel where you can see all the visuals. I am a highly visual content creator, so everything is, if I can do it with the insight in mind approach, I call ism, I do. So I am sharing. My celebration is that I took a class because I learn best with structure and accountability. So I took a 5-week class to learn how to make this. It was a hoodie, zippered cabled sweater. I learned cables. Guys, can you see my cables?
Look at the detail.
I have resisted, Becca, you know, I told you when I signed up for this, I had no interest in learning cables. I have never taken a different class because it had cables. I was even told the shop owner when I signed up for the class, I'm like, can I just keep knitting and just do it in pattern? I don't care about the cables.
Yeah.
I love the cables. I'm so like, I can't.
So good.
And then the last class was learning how to put a zipper. Come on. A zipper. I don't even know. So what I love about making things on my own is I get to decide how long I want the sleeves. I get to decide how long I want the sweater to the length. Oh my gosh, it's just so sparkly. And it's so satisfying. And I even modified it. Was a hoodie. And I was like, I don't like hoodies. I don't like leaning on them. So I got to modify the pattern where I just made it kind of fold down.
A cute little collar.
Done.
So is that going to be going in your success journal?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is going in the expected patronum journal. But I just wanted to wear it because it's still, that was my goal too, is to get it done when it was still cold enough here in Chicago to wear it. And
you got a good week of at least.
Check the box. It is. So
super cute.
All right, on to the tool for this week.
Yay.
I'm going to be talking just for a minute about weighted blankets.
Ooh.
So I am using my daughter's right now. Mine, I wasn't able to grab as easily. So I have just her gray weighted blanket, which when I picked it up, she's really heavy. I bought this for her a few years ago. I don't remember how heavy hers was, but when I picked it up, I was like, oh my gosh, I think it's 20 pounds, which is really heavy because she's like a really petite little thing. It's probably too heavy for her because the rule of thumb is 10% of your body weight.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know.
So like her should probably be like 10 pounds. He's probably like pinning her to her bed, but she loves it. But okay, so weighted blankets. I was inspired to share this, and when I first was turned on to the idea of this concept of buying a weighted blanket for comfort for people with ADHD was I was still in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I bought it first for my oldest daughter. And so I want to say it's at least 10 years ago. Nobody had really heard of them yet. They were just, kind of on the outskirts, maybe your therapist or somebody might recommend it, but it wasn't mainstream at all. And now it really is. So I might be sharing information that you already know, but just in case you don't, or it's an idea that you came across, but you weren't really quite sure how it worked, I'm just going to share a little bit of research on how they do support ADHD specifically. They're
Ooh.
recommended for a lot of different health conditions, but I'm just going to talk about ADHD.
Love it.
So the article was in Health magazine. It was written by Jenna Demmer, and the article itself was called 4 Ways a Weighted Blanket May Improve Your Health. I loved this because everything was may.
It might.
There's no guarantees,
Yeah.
just may, because there really isn't research that definitively shows the benefits. So I want to be really clear on that. But first, what is a weighted blanket? So they consist of a cover, and within the cover inside, it's filled with materials like glass or plastic beads, and I can feel them. They're like inside each of these like little square pockets. There's like a little pouch of them.
Interesting.
And this one is like itty bitty. I want to say these are beads. They're little pellets.
Yeah.
They typically are between 5 and 30 pounds. I don't know. This guy is at least 20, 25 pounds. This one is a heavy guy. So when it says cover, I have never owned one that you could actually remove the cover. I don't know why it was just a term that's used. I think it implies that there's like a zipper. There's no way to remove a cover from any of the weighted blankets that I have ever purchased. But studies show that they may provide some benefits.
All right.
So the benefits are they can reduce your anxiety, they can enhance sleep and the quality of sleep. Now, I do find this is true. It's almost like it's like giving you like a hug. It just feels like all snuggly. They can improve your mood. They can reduce chronic pain. So yeah, I know it is mentioned for a couple of different medically diagnosed conditions, and they may improve overall well-being. Because what I got to say is, if it's improving your sleep, if it's improving your mood, obviously that kind of lends itself to overall well-being. So ADHD specific findings were in a 2023 study. They found that they are very popular with those of us with ADHD. No surprise. And they can aid in sleep and relaxation. And they can also help people with ADHD to develop better routines around going to bed, so your bedtime, and getting up. So I love that. I literally wrote like, oh, it's like a yummy bed. Like you look forward to getting into bed. It's very individual, right? So like this, I think would be too heavy for me.
Right.
Like I said, the general recommendations are around 10% of your body weight. And they are, I want to emphasize, because, anytime I see like a warning, I always want to pass that on. They are not safe or recommended for children under 4, period. And children under 50 pounds. No go, not safe. And they're also not recommended for people with sleep apnea and other health conditions. So always check with your healthcare provider before adding anything like new, and a weighted blanket is included in that. So want to make sure that it's safe for you to do that, because I think some people with diabetes is not a good idea.
Right, that makes sense.
So again, confirm with your healthcare provider if it is something that you want to implement, that you think it would support your ADHD. I do find it reduces my stress. I do like a lap blanket kind. I don't want it all over my entire bed, but I do like to have it kind of like, just like as an added little snuggly. My husband doesn't want it. So I kind of like to have it. So I just like a little guy. They come in like throw sizes. They've even seen like little, like literal, like lap ones that people like take on airplanes and things.
Interesting.
You can get them in twin size, like you can get them like whole bed sizes too, all different price points.
That'd be a heavy
I know, right? Well, and then I think it would make sense if it came with a cover, because you're not going to wash it with all the beads in it, so you'd need to have a cover to remove. Okay, and now a quick word from our sponsor, which is ADHD Friendly. Who knew? So here at ADHD Friendly, we've been serving the ADHD and neurodivergent community since 2012. I created ADHD Friendly as a membership community to support us to thrive with ADHD by tilting the playing field in favor of our brain. I lean into what I know works, and I really highlight the research and the data behind why certain things don't work for us, so that we are doing more of the things that do work and letting go of the things that don't work. I invite you to check it out, ADHDfriendly.com, to see if it's a good fit for your needs. And now back to the program. All right, so our topic for episode 129 this week is SketchNotes. Now, these are often called visual notes. They're called a lot of different things. I call them SketchNotes because I learned about these probably 4 years ago now from one of my college students, where the course they were taking, the professor required them to learn how to take SketchNotes as a note-taking system for their class.
For his class.
Mhm. And so they had shared YouTube videos on SketchNotes. And of course, because I love reading my students' syllabi, it's just a little geek thing that I don't know why, but my brain just loves reading. It just seems like the most boring thing. And I have to tell you, across the board, my students do not like reading their syllabi. Or I'm like, gimme, 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 gimme. Like, I can't wait to read them. And when I read the about the SketchNotes and the reason behind it, I literally was like, and I went and I did a deep dive and I started watching all these YouTube videos. I bought the book. So it's called the SketchNote Handbook by Mike Rohde, Rohde.
Cool.
I didn't use the book a tremendous amount. It just, for like, I always say, you can tell by the number of flags I have in a book which it resonated with me. That's not really a judgment based on having read the whole thing front to back.
Yeah.
I just found the videos and easier for me to take and put into place. This was a little bit less helpful. It was just a lot of visual, which typically works for me, but sometimes it's too much for me.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
but I do want to share the resource in case it works for you. So to define SketchNotes, they are visual notes created with a mix of, they could be handwriting, drawings, shapes, and elements like arrows or boxes, lines, or different things that kind of define what you're using on the printed page. For ADHD, people with working memory weaknesses, which most of us with ADHD do have our working memory impacted, it makes it hard for us to remember what we're trying to remember. Whether we're reading it or we're taking notes, we have a hard time holding on to that information. Our brains are better at processing images than we are at processing words. So better image processors than word processors. So anytime we can take words, which are very abstract, and create visuals, which are concrete, it's going to make it easier for us to hold on to that information. And that's what SketchNotes are all about.
So cool.
I know. So some types of visuals that can be used when taking visual notes or sketch notes are icons. So like simple little images, illustrations, symbols, sketches, figures, concepts, like mind maps, and flowcharts. I am terrible at drawing. I always say that my drawing skills kind of froze in their development at about 5 years of age. So, about what a preschooler or a kindergartner can draw. I'm still drawing stick figures. My smiley face is like circle. If I'm drawing a person, I might be able to like kind of like give like a little shoulder rounding. I can't draw. So when I first learned about this, was kind of resistant because I can't draw. And what I learned diving into it is you don't have to be able to draw. So I lean very heavily into the icons. There are like the guy that did this is very into drawing, and he, even like here, like you can see, like he shows the difference between simple illustrations and fancy illustrations.
Oh, wow.
And I honestly can't do most of these simple illustrations.
My simple illustrations would be like very minimal.
My pie chart is a circle. It's not showing 3D. Elevation. No, that's not happening. And my book is like a book where I draw a line down the center for lines and little lines on the side to represent. There's no dimensional aspect to it. So I would say his simpler kind of my advanced. But again, there's no judgment. There are notes for you to support you in remembering things more easily. And I really can see where this helps students who have to take a ton of notes.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to share a couple of examples. One could be icons in, like, I always think of them in the margins when I'm reading. If all I'm doing is highlighting text when I'm reading, this is typically for me a nonfiction book. I don't typically mark up my fiction books. But if I have a nonfiction book I'm reading, I'm always reading it with a highlighter and post-it flags. But if all I do is highlight and flag, I have to go back and reread it to figure out, why did I highlight that? So if there's a little icon I can put in the side, it can really help me to remember. And so I wanted to show some of my favorite go-to icons. And again, my drawing. So this is my level of skill. So a little quote on the side of the margin to me means that that's a quote I can use. So I'm like, oh, a little quote there reminds me that that's something I can pull out and use if I'm making a webinar presentation or I'm preparing for this podcast and I want to use a quote. A star next to it means, oh, I really like this idea, or it's like important, something that I really want to remember. It's more so than maybe there's 5 different lines I highlighted, but this one, I'm putting a star next to it. The little light bulb for me means that I have an idea, something that I either want to expand on or come back to, because I thought of like something I want to make, a tool that would maybe turn a bunch of like a description in a paragraph into something visual. I'll put a little light bulb there. Sometimes if it's written in again, paragraph form, I'm like, I want to turn that into a bullet point list. I want to make that or into a checklist. So that's like my little icon that I want to make that into a list. And then arrow up or arrow down could be like, this has like really positive energy, or this is kind of negative energy, or I really like this. This is like really good, or this is like not, you know, kind of the best thing. Just the arrows just make it really easy. So I'm looking at, it gives me more data to filter through instead of having to go back and read all the highlighted things to remember, why did I highlight this in the first place? So it's one of my favorite things to do when I'm reading fiction books to help me come back to it. I also like color coding. So I've shared before, I love writing with different colors. I highlight with different colors, but it can really help, especially if you're studying. I use this a lot with students, where if you highlight certain concepts in certain colors, your brain has something else to hold on to. So when you're taking that test, you might remember, you know, I highlighted that in green. I remember seeing that word in green. That means it's an algae or it's a molecule or whatever. You know, it just helps you to remember these different topics because you're giving it something visual to connect to instead of just reading the flat words on a page. You can also categorize topics. Like for me, like when I even think about recipes, I might have like breakfast that I'll have like on a yellow card, or lunch on a red card, snacks on white card, dinner on green cards, you know, whatever, but it just makes it easier. So I'm not going through and having to read every single card. I know what colors I put for different things. So it's just an easy way to organize things. I do this in my file folders too.
So smart.
And then when I was mentoring coaches and training coaches, I had to listen to coaches coach. And I had to take notes and give feedback as soon as they finished coaching. So I had to like literally listen to, you know, like a 15 to 25 minute coaching session and then give really specific feedback immediately. That's not a strength for me. It was really challenging for my brain. And so I came up with a whole way to take notes as I was taking notes of what they said. And again, the quotes. So I'd remember like you said this here, or up like something positive. There's good energy here, a good connection here. I was listening for very specific competencies. So I had ways of kind of like, I had to hear like 3 examples of things. So I'd kind of be like 1 up, 2 up, 3 down, you know, whatever. It would just help me remember and reconnect quickly so I could give that feedback without having to go back and digest it for an hour and then be ready to give it. I had to be able to give it right away. Yeah, which does not work for my brain. So using different really quick sketchable icons really worked for me. Some other ways to use SketchNotes, I pulled these from the internet as examples I printed because I found them really sparkly, and I love the idea of doing this. And this is shared in the book. This was one of the ideas, is when you're reading, you can do a sketch note of an entire book, but you could also do just a chapter. So this is a sketch note of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, chapter 1. And it's like, you know, Privet Drive and the Dursleys are asleep, and they show like Hagrid arriving on his motorcycle. It's just all sketched out in a visual way. It so helps your brain to remember when you're processing it in a different modality and using visual to kind of anchor it. So I just love this. So this is kind of chapter 1. And so instead of reading the entire book, if you did like 1 page of a sketch note for every chapter, it's your summary of the book. It's really genius. Another example, I talked about doing this with students. So this is an example of somebody's notes on bonds and forces. And so again, there's a lot of writing, but it's broken up with little clouds and little diagrams of molecules. And I'm not science, so I don't know what they are. And then, you know, just kind of showing strongest to weakest bonds, where you just have, you know, a sense of the flow. They're ordered from strongest down to weakest. It's just, again, a way to organize visually what on a flat page with just words alone it just doesn't work the same. It's not going to be as impactful for our brains. Oh, that was my last example. That's it. So again, SketchNotes, if that interests you, and again, if you're great at drawing, this might be something that you're already doing. You just want to put a little more intentionality and some structure around it. If you resist it, like I do, because you don't sense that you know, drawing is a strength, I invite you just to explore ways to begin that allow you to start from where you are. Maybe you just start with kind of like stars and quotes, or, you know, just something small that allows you to kind of differentiate what all the highlights on the page mean or what all the information is into a little icon on the side that helps you to connect to it. I do also like the book when if somebody references a book, I'll put a little book picture on the side to remind me that's a book I want to actually go back and read myself. And then after I read the book, I can go back and just pull out the important things instead of trying to read all of or remember what all the flags on the page were for. Give me more context to connect to. So I invite you to check out SketchNotes. And again, this is episode 129. If there's something you try, or if you've done SketchNotes of your own, a variation that you can share your experience, we'd love to hear it. Post in the comments for 129. Okay, and now for the book of the week. So I am reading Be Useful, 7 Tools for Life by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I learned about this actually on the Smart List podcast. He was interviewed and brought up that he had written this book, which I hadn't even heard of. And I love reading self-help books. I love reading books that, you know, kind of other like successful people kind of dial down to what their approaches are that have worked for them. I'm not done yet, but the interesting thing is I started reading it and then I put it down, and I think I read 2 other books since I put it down.
Yeah.
And I was going to return it because it's a library book, which I always have a hard time finishing nonfiction library books because I can't write in them.
Right.
Well, I have written in them in the past, but I forgot it was a library book, and then I had to go back and buy it. Don't ever buy a library book. They're so much more expensive because they charge you because it's like a library
Like the cover.
edition
Yeah.
of the book, and then they, you know, all the effort to, and then you're stuck with all the stuff. Anyway, so I have a hard time reading nonfiction books that are from the library, but I thought, you know what, before you return it, just pick it up and read one more chapter. And I got so into it. But I was like, oh my gosh. And so it really is just his approach to how to be useful. I like the simplicity of, you know, just be useful, kind of like give back, like what can you contribute? And he did this chapter that I just finished on looking in the mirror and the practice that he really says made a difference in his life about looking at himself in the mirror every single day. And when I closed that chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's what he's doing. I think he was like literally practicing his look in the mirror when he had his picture taken, which I took this very differently. When I first checked the book out, I was like, oh my gosh, like Arnold, like chill out. That's like kind of intense.
Your face about?
You know, like almost like you like say, settle down. Like that's like a little much.
Arnold.
But after I read the chapter, I was like, oh, I feel like he's modeling the looking in the mirror look. And I felt it very differently. And I found myself just staring at, it's like, if you look at it, Becca, it's like he's literally looking at you.
It is.
Like
intensely.
It's intense.
Yeah.
And I felt a very different energetic connection than I did before I read that chapter. So I thought, you know, I'm going to share this. I'm going to actually, even though I'm not done, which I usually don't do. And one day in the future, I might say, I never talk about a book unless I finished it, because it's typically what I would do. You can prove me wrong, because I'm going to forget that I said, I talked about this book before I finished it, but I am now confident I will finish it because I've told you about it. So I have to finish it. But I'm also really into it again after that look in the mirror chapter. So be useful. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Be useful.
Yeah. Very, very useful. All right. And now for my Kevin Kelly quote of the week. Here we go, guys. This is a good one. There is no perfection, only progress. Done is much better than perfect. Oh my gosh, if that isn't an ADHD-friendly quote, I don't know what is. Thumbs up to Kevin Kelly.
Thanks, Kevin Kelly.
That's awesome. Awesome blossom. All right. That's it for this episode of ADHD Friendly. I am looking down because I have to put my bookmark back in my Arnold Schwarzenegger book to remind me that I'm not yet done. As always, take what works for you, leave the rest behind. I invite you to check out my website, ADHD-Friendly.com, for lots of tools and resources to support you to tilt that playing field and thrive with ADHD. Until next time, tally ho.